Hi, it's Kyle. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind everybody that the Ataxian documentary is now available. It's a documentary about our team's journey in the world's toughest bike race across America. It's really exciting. We're really proud of it, and we'd love for you to see it. It is available on iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play. You can find the links by going to theataxianmovie.com or just check out our show notes for this episode, and I hope you enjoy it. You are listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. I'm Kyle Bryant.
And I'm Sean Baumsart. Together, we're navigating life with disability. All right, welcome back to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. My name is Sean, and you are listening to episode 37. Kyle, are you there?
What up? Yeah, I am here.
Okay,
are you recovered from this crazy week?
No, honestly, not at all.
Yeah. Well, rest up, brother.
Thank you. I'm working on it. By crazy week, Kyle is referring to a lot of fun, cool, exciting stuff that we've both been able to be a part of. There's been a lot going on recently. We just got back from a few days in Washington, D.C., where we were a part of the Rare Disease Week activities hosted by Every Life Foundation. And while there, they actually did a screening of the Ataxian and a Q&A panel afterwards that Kyle and I were both a part of. And what else have we been doing? I feel like that's not it. There was more.
Well, so, John, before we jump into that, I really wanted to go back to about 3 weeks ago maybe, when our website went down. Some people might realize, a couple people might realize that it went down. What are you talking about? Do you remember that?
I remember there was a period where the site wasn't working for a couple hours.
So,
but it was fine. I mean, it's fixed.
So this is what happened. You
would bring this up.
You texted me and said, "Hey, the website's down. What's up with that?" And I was in the car on the way back from a meeting, and I remembered that I had brought my computer in to get fixed, so I had no computer that day. And so I was like, shoot, how do I find out? Like, I can't go home and just get on the computer and check out the website. Mm-hmm. So I went to the library and got on a computer there.
That's amazing. When was the last time anybody... Raise your hand if you've ever been to the library.
Seriously. I do have a library card because I was trying to save money for a little while on Amazon, but it ended up not being worth it. I just spend money on books now. Okay. So I went to the library, and there was nothing I could do there, and I was like whispering in my phone to like the GoDaddy people that were trying to help me out. Finally, I get home and like I get on the phone with GoDaddy where I can actually talk, and I said, so there's a service they have that just restores it to like the last backup, and it happened to be fine. Like, it was fine. But Sean, how did that happen in the first place?
I wish I could tell you, but I am not tech savvy. But, I mean, I have a feeling I know what went wrong. So, Cal and I both, we share the administration of the site. We both do a couple little things. It just depends on, who's available. So I had, the night before, I got on, made a few edits, posted some notes, and then I went and, saved it all. But in the process of being on the back end of the website, I saw that a bunch of our, what do you call them? what do you call it?
widgets or
Like, yeah, little
plugins.
Plugins. Thank you. A lot of the little stuff that makes it cool or functional, they were outdated. Like your iPhone, right? You got to update it every couple months. So I got a notice. Hey, we had like 7 or 8 things out of date. So I'm like, oh, let's just update them real quick. So I clicked update all, logged out, and went to bed. Then the next morning, we had an episode coming out that morning, so I went online.
Yeah, and we had an awesome video coming out, too.
Yeah, we had a lot
I'm sure
going
some
on.
people may have seen the video from Riata. It was super cool.
So I went, I checked my work, and I logged in, or didn't log in. I just went to the website to see what the public would be seeing. And I got a notice saying this website is not working or something of that nature. So then I'm like, well, maybe it's my phone. So I went to the computer. I went to the tablet. It was not working. So I just went to work.
Oh, good job. Yeah, that's perfectly logical.
I was late. So, because part of me was like, well, maybe it's an internet timing thing. So a couple hours later, I try again. Still not working.
Still down.
So I text Kyle, hey, dude, what's up with the website?
Sorry, I got to go back to work. So, see ya. But the website's down. What?
So I was just so thankful that Kyle took care of it because I had no idea what to do.
And actually, we still don't know what went wrong, except for Sean is not allowed to update the plugins anymore.
And in the middle of this, thankfully, we only got one email.
Yeah, from one person.
I don't know if that's good or bad. Either that means nobody's going to our website, or most were like, oh, they'll figure it out. So hopefully it was the latter one, but one listener reached out and said, hey, I think something's wrong. It's not working.
I think most people were like you. They're like, oh, it's not my problem. I'll just let someone else figure it out.
Yep, that's the way to get through life, It's not my problem.
All right.
Anyway,
so,
I'm glad you shared
we started
that.
off with a bit of really good advice. So let's talk about the last week for us. So first thing was in California. I flew out there. Sean came down, and we did. FARA held a symposium where we invited doctors and researchers out to present on their latest research. And Jen Farmer, the executive director of FARA, she gave an overview of the current clinical trials. So that was really, really awesome. Mm-hmm. And then the next day we had Ride Ataxian SoCal. We had 300 riders.
Serious.
And we raised $73,000.
That's amazing.
And it was a beautiful day. The day before was like really windy and cold, and I was getting nervous, but we had an absolutely wonderful day.
Yeah, the ride was right on the beach. That was you've done it at least once, maybe a couple times, and that was my first time attending the SoCal ride. And right on the beach, it was absolutely gorgeous. What a fun day.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be able to keep that venue, so everyone come out to SoCal. It's definitely a destination ride. It's a lot of fun. Next, so that day, Sean and I finished the ride, and we jumped in the car, and we went straight to the airport. Our flight left at 4:40, and we flew in, and we got into Washington, D.C., at 12:30 a.m. So I didn't realize how far Dulles Airport is from downtown Washington, D.C.
Yeah, side note, Sean's not allowed to play with the website. Kyle is not allowed to plan my travels.
Yeah. So we ordered the Lyft. I think we started with the Uber, and it was going to be like, it was 1 a.m. But dude, I think it was 2 by the time we got to the curb finally. I don't know. It was late. 1:30.
It was late. It took about
whatever it was.
That airport is huge. Took us forever just to get to the baggage claim area, and there was 3 of us. So Kyle, myself, Katie, who works with Farrah. By the time we get to the curb, it was well past 1:30.
Yeah. So we order an Uber, and it's 1:30, and the Uber was going to take half an hour to get there. Just because there aren't very many at 1:30 a.m.
Especially in Douglas.
And so we switched to Lyft. And that one was like 20 minutes. So first of all, we waited there forever. Then we had to like switch. We're lugging around all this luggage. We had to switch pickup locations or something. Anyway, the guy was nice. It was good. We had a minivan on the way there, but it took like probably almost an hour to get there.
It was the drive. We just kept going and going and going.
And so we finally get to the hotel, and we're like, all right, we need to order some food or we're not going to be able to sleep, right? So we were able to order a pizza and it showed up finally at 4 a.m., right?
Yep. Yeah, the pizza place, about 30 minutes. Wrong.
So actually, in the hotel room, I passed out before the pizza even got there. I'm like, can you guys save me a piece or two if I wake up? But no, I didn't wake up at all. So I passed out. Sean scratched some pizza, and we went to sleep at like 4.
It was a crazy day, and part of the reason why we're telling you about all this and kind of laughing about it is what we're going to do with this episode is actually play a recorded Q&A panel that Kyle and I were both on, and a couple others, after the screening of the Ataxian. But we wanted to set it up this way because they're listening to the recording. There were some questions that both of us were like, dang it, why wasn't I thinking? And I should have answered better, or I could have answered differently. So that we just wanted to give you a glimpse of what was going on leading up to the recording that we're going to play for you here in a moment.
Yeah, no. And it was really amazing. I think hopefully you will think that Sean and I held it together pretty well. And everyone did an amazing job. We're lucky enough to be involved with some really awesome people in the rare disease community, and then specifically at Farrah. So, we had some really awesome people. Moderating the panel was Dr. Thomas Felix, and he works at Amgen, and he works in government relations and paves the way for new technologies, just introducing them to the government so there'll be a smoother transition when those things get going. And then on the panel, we had Tom Hamilton, who you have heard before. You can listen to him in episode 24. He is on the board at Farrah, and he is the executive producer of the Ataxian, and he is the founder of the Cure of Hay Foundation. And then the other person on the panel is Dr. Angel Martin. She just got her PhD at Duke not too long ago, and now she works at Farrah as our research director. And so you'll be able to hear those people. Oh, and then Ron Bartek chirps in from the audience. It's always great to hear from Ron. You can hear him in one of our past episodes, too. I think it's like 9 and 11 or something like that.
I think you're right. Something like that.
And if you want to hear more from Ron, but we had an amazing time.
Yep, absolutely. And then, of course, because it was a Q&A panel, there are a handful of folks in the audience who had the opportunity to pick our brains or ask some questions. So we're going to play that recording for you now. We hope you enjoy episode 37 and this Q&A.
So this is the panel we have before you. And I think, the question on my mind, and I think we covered some of this a little bit on the call, but, when you're In a movie like this, Ataxian, what's life afterwards? Sean and Kyle, tell us what it's like with the paparazzi. Do you need the security? Is that like an essential part? What's the?
He does. He needs it. Yeah, for sure. No, life is incredible afterwards. And before we move on, I wanted to point out that there are 3 other stars from the movie here tonight. We have Mr. Ron Bartek. And in the movie, you guys heard a lot from Bob O'Neill. He's here. Yeah. And Erin O'Neill is here too. She was in one of the scenes and several pictures. So, what do you think? I mean,
life's great.
I mean, the film has been incredible to spread the awareness. I mean, you get to experience FA and the FA community like a vision into it like you wouldn't be able to otherwise. And that's one of the things that I'm so grateful for, is that we get to share the FA community with all of you guys. And some really incredible people in the film, not just mine and Sean's story, but we're able to share intimately a lot of other people's stories. So that's what I'm really grateful for.
Could you tell us a little bit, Kyle, about the Ride Ataxia program?
Yeah, I can do that. So we have 6 bike rides now. We talked about it a little bit in the film, but we have 6 locations around the country. Yesterday, we were just at the Southern California location and had an incredible ride, 12 miles on the beach there, and raised money and awareness for FA research. So those rides happen around the country at different times during the year. And it started with just me and my parents and a few friends, and now we have 2,500 people. And we raise $1 million a year in that program. So, something I'm really proud of.
I think the thing about the program that Kyle doesn't, brag about enough is, yes, he raises $1 million a year, which is unbelievable, and he's raised $6 million for FA research. But what he doesn't tell you is, you see, like Jen Farmer saying in the film, how many people are living alone with this disease, and not just FA, right? This is true for all these orphan diseases. How many people are alone, with no support? And what Kyle does with these rides is he brings people together. He brings families together. He brings the patients together. And you can't put dollar signs on that. And I think that's the most important thing Kyle does all around the country, bringing all these people and making these patients who feel like they have this disease all by themselves, all of a sudden, I'm not the only person. And that's the kind of stuff that's priceless that he's doing for us.
Yeah, it was hard to miss the sort of instantaneous feel of like family every time you sort of congregated together. It was very clear. Even young kids who sort of saw you, and I could see that they were looking up to you.
Yeah.
In a way that that they saw a bright future ahead of them.
Yeah, there's a bond between 2 people that have the same condition, and nobody else understands, right? You feel like nobody understands, but then you connect with another patient, and holy cow, it's really, I don't know any other way to describe it except magic, right? It's this really intangible thing that is the strongest connection, like you've known that person for a long time. So it's really incredible.
So we have a lot to get into, and I want to just start with when I watched the movie the first time. I actually didn't watch it; I just listened to the audio, and this is the first time I saw the video. And this was no sort of low-budget film. There were camera angles in here. There was a lot of serious high production value, I felt. Can you tell us a little bit about how the movie came together? I mean, like tell us about the genesis of it. Tell us about what it took in terms of resources and teamwork.
So it started, first of all, because I wanted to do this bike race, and I wrote on my blog that we wanted somebody to come along and like capture the journey with a handy cam, And so it would live longer than just 8 days. And my friend from high school read that on my blog and called her friend, who happened to be a filmmaker, and that's Kevin Schlitzer, who's the cinematographer for the film. And so it was pretty serendipitous, but that's exactly how it happened. So, and as far as the production value, I agree. It's really high production value. But as far as like the camera angles and stuff, that was guerrilla warfare, man. They were just like, they were in the vans with us every day, and they had cameras on us probably 80% of the time during that whole race. And you would think you would get used to it, right? But never. I never got used to it. I always felt like Big Brother was there watching everything I was doing.
So we're going to look forward to the outtakes. If you guys have like a little outtake reel, we'll look forward to that. Can you? Was it expensive? I mean, that's a question. I mean, we're all kind of interested in
it
how
was
you
for
take
me.
For the executive producer, it usually is.
So I think the thing that people are, I didn't realize, I know nothing about filmmaking, by the way, but the ride was 2010, guys. Ride was in 2010, right? It's 2018, so all the cinematography and all the footage was done before. I didn't know anything about FA when this was happening. So my daughter was diagnosed in April of 2013, and this was one of the projects that was kind of just stagnant. They had about 80 hours of footage, and Ron and Jen both said, listen, if you can add any structure, leadership, deadlines to this thing, maybe something will happen. So, Kyle and I got together, and we flew out to LA, and we met with the directors and tried to figure out why things were not coming together. And I bought the rights to the film, and we finally put some timelines around it. I guess we're not good at that either, because that took 5 years too.
It could have taken 10.
We did some Kyle and I did a lot of cat herding, in those days, but it wasn't that expensive, but it also was. You had people who put their heart into it, right? I mean, we had these directors and cameramen, and it's all volunteer, right? They just did this for free because they wanted to do the right thing, and they're still doing the right thing, these guys. I mean, they've really been fantastic. I put some money and structure around it just to basically give people time to put it together and make sure we did the technical things correctly. And you have to buy music rights, and there's all these things come up, and have insurance, and all, those things cost money. But in the scheme of things, I don't think it was an expensive ordeal, but that's because we had wonderful people in this community who love these guys and love the disease and wanted to help.
I think it's something worth emphasizing. They had a strong crew in the beginning to help film and capture the story, but over the course of 5 years to produce, narrators, different music artists, different people came to the table to try to pull off a beautiful film, and most of those people fell in love with the story and said, I'm in. What can I do to help? And even though it took a long time, it's because all these people were just doing everything they could to make it work while also holding down day jobs. But it's worth mentioning that all the folks involved, it was so much more than just capturing a movie or making a movie.
There's one funny anecdote about that. We had to go around and buy music rights. We kind of got these indie guys to play this nice, the music's great in the film. And they set it to the film, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, these guys actually made the film. Well, now, we think you have to go buy the rights to the songs. And like Sean says, everybody was like, listen, I'm so for your cause, here you go, except for one artist. And that was the dance party Hall & Oates.
The big one.
So Daryl Hall and John Oates weren't very friendly to us and didn't, they wanted money for it. So that version is actually a karaoke version sung by someone else that we put in the film to avoid having to pay them for the rights.
And I'll also mention, they were talking about the timeline. We did it in 2010. The film will be available on iTunes and Amazon and Google Play tomorrow for the first time. So you can all share it with your friends and family.
Okay, so that's the congregation we have here is a very varied congregation, and I will say that when we think of as a congregation, we think about FARA and the Friedreich's ataxia research. It's one of the more mature rare diseases in terms of how long it's been around. And I know internally at FARA you might think, gosh, we have so much farther to go, of course. But when you look at it from a rarer condition or a condition that hasn't been hasn't formed a family as tightly knit as you have, can you tell us a little bit about the genesis of the FA community and how you came together? I understand that we might phone a friend during this segment.
I was gonna say, I can take the lead on that one. One of the key things, and we'll talk about it with regard to the history of FARA, one of the key things about FARA is this sense of community that you bring in everyone. Everyone is a stakeholder. Everyone has a role. Everyone plays a part, right, in realizing a cure for FA. And you don't necessarily have to be impacted directly by the disease. And I think that's the case, too, for other rare disease communities. That could potentially be a key, right, to keep everybody involved and engaged. So, again, I wanted to use the expertise that I had developed, right, to continue, right, my work, but to have a larger impact. So I've come on now to run the research program. So just wanted to mention that, to say I think that's important and relevant for all rare disease communities. But a little bit about the history of FARA. So yeah, it was started, as Ron mentioned in the movie, in 1998, and it was actually really small. So I was talking to Ron about this. Essentially, that first meeting that was had in 1999 was just 80, patients and families. There were no clinical trials happening for FA. There were no pharma partners. We had, I think, a couple other advocacy groups that we were collaborating with, like the National Ataxia Foundation. But otherwise, it was just that tight-knit group. And, fast forward to, last year, we had our 6th international conference where there were greater than 400 scientists in the room. We had a couple dozen industry partners there who are engaged in the space. We have, 11 now clinical trials that are happening for FA, about 10 or so advocacy groups that we collaborate with. And so the way that all came about, right, from then to now, that 10-year space, or 20-year, I guess, space, I would argue comes from Ron's initial founding philosophy. So the idea that, everybody is a partner, so you want to have collaboration, right, rather than, any kind of confrontation or adversarial relationship. So you don't want to compete with other rare disease spaces. You don't want to compete for farmer attention or anything like that. You want to bring everybody to the table to have a conversation.
Ron, I know we said we might give you a couple of minutes. Do you mind? Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Thomas. My first question is, what was the secret of a messy hairdo?
You just got to make it look like you didn't do anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I think the whole gang has done a marvelous job of explaining how we got started and how we took stranded, isolated individuals and turned it first into a team and finally into the wonderful family you see on display tonight, you saw in the film. And that same sense is right here tonight, isn't it? I mean, how many of you have nothing to do with Friedreich's ataxia? And yet you feel that sense of family, don't you? Because that's how we roll. And it's, as Angel just said so compellingly, it's everybody. We can't do anything. That's what we said from the very beginning. My wife Rachel and I said there's nothing we can do by ourselves. Acting alone, there's very little we can accomplish. Acting together, there's very little we will not accomplish. So we started from the beginning working with anybody who could first spell Friedreich's ataxia. And we had just learned that when our son was diagnosed. And then we started reaching out to all the other stakeholders that Angel just listed very effectively. It was first our patients. Everything we do and everything you all, this is nothing new to most of you in the room. You all work the same way, right? It's like you have to build that kind of foundation of trust with your patient families. And you keep that, that's your rock solid foundation for everything you do. You start working with academic scientists, with industry partners, with government partners, with other advocacy organizations. And that was from the very beginning. Our first meetings were with our government partners and with other advocacy organizations saying, we're not here to compete or confront or get in your way. We're here to help. We're here to work together. And let's start working together. And now we've got about a dozen other advocacy organizations that have an interest in Friedreich's ataxia, wherever they are in the world. And we work hand in glove with all the umbrella organizations, the Every Life Foundation, RDLA. We're all here together with that wonderful group this week. We work with NORD, we work with the Alliance for Stronger FDA, Research America, Genetic Alliance. There's not an umbrella group that does rare diseases that we're not sitting down with and working with every day, all day. And finally, I know there are government partners in the room from the FDA and the NIH. And we've served on advisory councils at the NIH. We've given presentations at the FDA. These are not adversarial relationships. These are not just partnerships. These are rock solid friendships. These people care. These people care about every one of your diseases. They would love nothing more than to contribute to curing your diseases. And there's just all one family. And that's the name of the game. And so that's how we got started, and that's what we do. That's what we do on a daily basis. Pleasure to be here with you tonight, and thank you very much for.
Thank you, Ron. So here we are. We have, since 1983, we've had an Orphan Drug Act that basically has stimulated development, innovation. There's roughly about 600 indications that are orphan indications that have been approved since 1983, 450 distinct drug entities since that time, but yet we have still so much more to do. We have recent legislation that's passed with the Prescription Drug User Fee Acts, which is the sixth version of it that has come out. There is the 21st Century Cures, which has really put in place the importance of the FDA to start to bring together communities of patients and to really understand the perspective that patients have as they develop drugs or even interact with researchers and try to stimulate research. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in that interaction, engaging the FDA? How has that relationship, how did it start? How has it evolved?
Well, I think it started with Ron, right? Ron and Bridget Brennan, who's also on our board, work a lot with down in Washington, engaging with the FDA. We've recently had a patient-focused drug development meeting, which the FDA is having more of those. I think we've got very positive feedback from that. And I think we take what they say seriously, and we take it at face value. They really care about the patients. We believe that. And I think we do everything we can to partner and work with them. Right? I don't think as an organization we go to any government agencies and say, you need to do this or you need to do that. We say, what can we do to help you? We're here to do things together. How can we help create a model that works for patients? How do we get better healthcare outcomes for our patients? And this is just not true for FA, right? Ron is not just advocating for FA when he's out talking on the Hill to people, right? It's about all rare diseases. We need all of the groups to come together. Everyone's fighting for the same thing, and we're all fighting for patients, whether it's for FA or any of your indications. We're all going down that same path. And I think you have to have a heightened sense, and I think most people in this community have a lot of perspective around that, where it's not about you and not just about your disease. It's about everybody, right? There's 30 million people with rare diseases in the country. We need to take care of all of them.
So we're here in Washington, D.C., the seat of government in our nation, and of course, federal government has a very important role to play in creating structures, regulatory, legal structures that allow us to advance rare disease treatment options. Before we actually get into the federal government a little bit more, can someone tell me, I was really surprised when we were talking on the phone in preparation for this this panel about your work on the state government side, and I wonder if maybe some of our congregation might not be aware of the importance of state governments in rare diseases.
Well, I think it's much harder on the state level. I mean, I think there's a lack of resources on the individual state level to have the same kind of conversations that you can have on broad strokes at the federal level. But the state governments are also critical for newborn screening panels and getting your newborn screening test passed. And it's state by state, and some states are starting to join up and do it all together. But it's a long trek, even once you have a treatment, to get on the newborn screening panels, and it's state by state, and it's a lot of hard slogging. So it's a different engagement, but it's also a critical one. And it probably takes a lot more work at the state level because they don't have the resources either to be paying attention. You know, the federal government is covering a lot of rare diseases. You know, it's difficult on a state level to be that responsive to all of these different groups. So I think it's a harder slug, but it's also one that you have to take, and it's critical to the newborn screening panels.
So can you tell us a little bit about the structure that exists to influence state governments? What are the organizations that are active in states? How do others sort of get involved, if possible?
So I was active in establishing a rare disease day for the state of Pennsylvania, and NORD is organizing Rare Disease Day in every state for advocacy. And so, you know, we go there and do a press conference, and we have speakers from industry and academic speakers and patients, and it helped us, that focus helped us form a working group on rare diseases in Pennsylvania. And I think it's a pretty good model for other states, just a heightened awareness of rare disease. Like, none of these legislators who are now on our rare disease caucus in Pennsylvania and on the working group, they didn't know much about rare disease before, but now they do.
That's really impressive. We're gonna, if you have a question, if you could raise your hand, we'll make sure that somebody comes over to you with a mic.
Hello, I'm Donna Christosic. I'm the family advocate for Miracle Flights, and I'm also the mother of a rare child. My question is for Kyle. When you were riding that bicycle into that parking lot and you sat on that curb, we could all tell that there was something going through your mind that really touched you. Can you tell us what you were thinking, please?
Yeah, and I've actually thought about this a lot myself. And partly, I think it was the weight of the community and the fact that I spent those 8 days every time I got on the bike just thinking about the people that were being affected by what we were doing, and the people that were affecting me by their, texts and emails and whatever, encouraging us to go further and faster because of the community. And at that point, we were about 100 miles from the finish line, and we knew we were going to make it. And so I think I knew I could let go at that point. Like, I could, all right, we're there, let's, and it just all came out, so.
Thank you. Thank you.
I see another question. If someone can pass them. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, sorry. My name is Debbie Drill. I am the Director of Membership at the National Organization for Rare Disorders, and my sister has pulmonary hypertension, a rare disorder that's cardiopulmonary. And when I watched the documentary, the whole time I had the concerned sister of like, what did your doctor say about this? What kind of medical advice? And I was like concerned the whole time, waiting for like, okay, something's going to happen to you guys, because I'm ultra paranoid. So I just wonder, what did your doctor say? I'm just like, what happened afterwards? Did it affect, your condition? Did people tell you can't do this medically? So I'm just really curious about that.
I'll answer that. Who cares? I'll go on with all due respect that, lots of doctors and I appreciate all of them. And they exist to help us make good decisions and live full lives. But I think the video, the film captures it, our podcast captures it, the spirit in the room captures it. You've got to do whatever you think you can, and you've got to put your best foot forward and make the most of whatever you're given in life. There's probably 100 different conditions represented in the room, if not more. I think at some point in life, you just got to play the hand you were dealt and make the most of it. So I don't think I told my doctors that I was doing this right at the time. But, you take advice and counsel with a grain of salt, but at the end of the day, you do what you think is going to make a difference for yourself and the other people in the community.
Hi, my name is Lisa Ann, and I'm with the International Pemphigus and Pemphigoid International Foundation. My question is about the physical movie, and you're releasing it tomorrow, you said. Are we able to show it in, how do you say that? Can we invite lots of people to one location to watch the movie? Is there a way to legally do that?
How big's your television?
How big?
Churches have huge screens.
So we had, listen, from our perspective, we want everyone to see the movie. I don't care what you do with it. But, it's taken this long because there's a lot of restrictions around who you can show it to, how you can show it. We want to put it in film festivals, but you can't get in that film festival if you've shown it somewhere else. And so there was all these caveats, and we finally threw our hands up and just said, this is crazy. We need everyone to have access. So it's available on iTunes. Do with it what you want. Now, we also have a fundraising program at FARA where if you want to have access to the film in this format, it's a different ballgame, but it's certainly something you can contact Kyle and FARA about, and we can provide this level of detail and cinematography and music and everything else.
Hi, my name is Kathy Kuntz. I'm a patient advocate for the Amyloidosis Research Consortium, and I was in really good shape before I was diagnosed with my disease, and it can be a deadly or debilitating disease, and I know a lot of people who have suffered kind of permanent limitations from the disease, and so I just wanted to hear from Kyle and Sean, like when you're meeting patients for the first time and they're still in that scared, mind-reeling, emotional state from the diagnosis. What do you guys think about when you're talking to them and trying to give them hope in the face of what look like really daunting odds?
Well, for me, I'll let Sean think about it for a second.
Because he does this more, so.
But for me, there's sort of two parts to the question. When I'm meeting somebody for the first time and they've just been diagnosed, one of the questions is like, what's the number one thing you tell that person, right? And for me, it's connect with other people. Like I was talking about that intangible connection earlier, and the practical things too. You see someone doing something that you want to do, and you're like, wait, that person has the same condition that I do. Maybe I can do that too. And I think that's a real eye-opener. So relating to the race for me, I was still walking before I probably 60% of the time I was on my feet. And the stress that was going to go onto my legs in this race, I was like, you know what? I don't even care if I'm in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. I just want to finish this race. And so I think it's important to have a goal. Like that goal was not about it. It took into account, I guess, FA, but it was more about the goal, right, than the consequences. And so I don't know if that makes sense, but I think it's important for us to have goals that maybe don't have as
to do with the disease. I think making connections, in any struggle in life is key to working through your condition or your loss or whatever the issue might be. And I think beyond that, what we both talk about often on our podcast is the importance of living with a sense of urgency. And I think the film captures a bit of that. You can be perfectly healthy and well off and well educated, and life can be going great, and it's over tomorrow. None of us, conditioned, diseased, or perfectly healthy, are promised another day. And I think realizing that no matter what you're up against in life, this is your journey today. You've got to make the most of it and encourage the people around you to do the same thing. So whether it's a financial crisis or a health crisis, living with a sense of urgency, I think, is important to making sure that you feel your life has meaning. Whether it's a long life or a short life, we all have a part to play, and you've just got to play that part now.
Can I say one thing? I lost it. I just want to say one other thing, like the question about what you say to a new patient, and you deal with this. I deal with this with my own child, but I think what we can all say to new patients, and this is not just an FA thing, medicine and science and technology is moving at a faster pace today than ever in history. And you can honestly look at a newly diagnosed patient and tell them your outcome is going to be different than someone's outcome from 5 years ago, significantly different. And I really believe that. And we see it through the science that happens in FA, and it's happening in all the diseases that are rare. And it's an honest, hopeful assessment you can give to a newly diagnosed patient.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Clement. I'm simply, my little girl she's a rare baby. So my question for you guys is mainly, as you just said, modern medicine is doing amazing things. I'll be damned if I don't find a cure for my little girl or find somebody else to do it in the course of my life. So I guess my question for you guys, you've obviously been very successful with raising awareness and raising money and getting people to do research for your disorder. So I guess for the rest of us in this room, what has been the most effective method, in your guys' opinion, for raising that awareness? And what's the best, I guess, route that you guys took that got you to where you are today as far as the advocacy route goes?
I have two things that I'd say to that. There's two things that FARA has done, and I think that others can do. The first thing FARA did was they organized the patient community. Right, Ron organized the patient community. We end up with a patient natural history study. We've got a whole biomarker and biologics biobank for patients. You have to do the job of, I don't want to say selling your disease, but that's what you're doing, right? We say with FA, listen, it's a single gene disorder. 96% of the people have the exact same mutation. This is not ALS where there's 40 different diseases, right? We've got all these patients have the same problem and it's fixable. And then we create an infrastructure around it that makes it attractive for commercial entities, biotechs, VC companies to look at these, because we can't kid ourselves that we don't have enough money between any of us, right? You need commercial help at some level to attack your disorder. So what can you do across all of your areas? You create infrastructure, you organize your patients, and you make your disease fixable and saleable. And I think that's what, by the way, I didn't do any of this. Ron and the people who started in 1998 had the vision, right, to do that work up front and create that infrastructure. And I think FA as a disease is bearing the gifts of that, planting those seeds early. But I think that's a lesson for any rare disease, right? Any rare disease needs to somehow set up that function and infrastructure so that you become attractive.
Thank you.
Sure. That was a beautiful job, and I agree with everything that Tom just said. I would just reinforce it by saying that is the formula. That is the formula. When we started, first we built the trust around the patient, from the patient families. We went from there to building the first patient registry. We wanted to know who they were, where they were located. So a simple patient registry. Then that grew into a natural history database that we funded in a very small way with just 5 centers around the country, 1 in Australia, started seeing patients, examining them once a year. That built the patient natural history database that's now 11 centers around the world, and it's got about 1,200 patients in it from 1 to 12 years of natural history. And we also support a clinical network. So you combine the patient registry that we can use to recruit our clinical trials that we do in a few hours, not a few months, not a few years, a few hours. We recruit 60 or 70 patients at 3 to 5 sites around the country. Combine that with the clinical network that we support and the natural history database that draws, as Tom was saying, draws all these companies. We started with 0 companies. They all said to us what they've said to you. You're too rare, you're on your own. You're not going to get any help from us. And now we've got 36 of them saying, you guys are a perfect turnkey operation. We come to you, you know your patients, you've got a clinical network that knows your patients, you've got a natural history database we can mine to come up with biomarkers, endpoints for our clinical trials, and we'll do those clinical trials right with your clinicians and your nurse coordinators in your sites. So it's, it saves them time and money, and that's the secret to drawing them to your site.
For all the patients who are here and not here, Sean and Kyle, as you think about being an effective patient, an effective rare disease patient, what do you think that entails to be a superhero for your condition?
Good question. You want to go first? No.
Is that the first time Kyle has not gone first? Well, he said he doesn't want to go first.
I think that, for me, I take a cue from my leadership, from my family. Ron and I cry all the time, so it's always a bet who's gonna cry first. But so anyway, I take a cue from my leadership, and I think the number one thing for me is building community and building connections. Aaron O'Neill is an expert at that. But yeah, so, and fostering that in other people so that they understand how important it is to just be friends with new patients and make them feel valuable, right? And so I think it's as simple as that. I don't think you have to ride your bike across the country or climb a mountain. You've got to extend a handshake and a hug to somebody who's joining the community.
Yeah. And I wonder if somebody on the panel or even somebody in the audience has anything to say about the importance of clinical trials.
I was just going to say, Kyle is underselling what he's doing. He's making connections. It's nonsense, right? If you follow the guy on social media, like every time I see him, he's like, got a needle in this arm, and he's getting a muscle biopsy over here, and he's involved in every trial we've got. He's given biosamples constantly, right? He's fully engaged with the research process and basically sacrificing and using his body for research all the time. And there's plenty of patients who are doing that, but it's not just about connections. He's involved in the science. He knows the trials that are going on. He knows what's needed from him, and he stands up and he does it.
The other thing that I just wanted to, if any of you have insight, is the challenge of enrolling clinical trials, especially when they're in earlier phases, the importance of patients. Any insights you can give in terms of patients who might be afraid of starting a clinical trial or feeling like they're already taking some other things and they don't want to mess up what they have going?
I'm not good on the science part of it.
Yeah.
But one thing I like to talk about, and I've said it in different platforms, whether whatever the pharma is, whatever the technique is, or the drug or the therapy is, the patients, we're irreplaceable. You can't buy us. You can't just make us up. You know, we're not a model. So to me, I look at that as, holy cow, what an opportunity, because they need to look at what's happening in our body, that looking at Tom's DNA or Angel's or somebody else's isn't going to give them the insight they need. So I look at it like, man, I'm literally 1 in a million in that regard. So I think it's important to realize and encourage people to allow, you know, not necessarily to be a lab rat, but to contribute to the legacy that's being built on behalf of your condition.
I want to emphasize patient education. So we have actually a student who's doing her thesis on this at the University of Florida, I think, right, Katie? She's trying to understand why patients get discouraged if, you know, they don't qualify for a clinical trial, right? So they are really excited that something is happening in their disease space, but if they're not, you know, eligible, then, you know, they get discouraged and they stop in getting enrolled and involving themselves. And I just want to make sure that it's important to get educated about what your options are and to know about eligibility before, you know, you try to invest too much. That seems to be a really important trigger, right, as far as getting signed up and then getting turned away. So the idea is that you should arm yourself, right, with the understanding of what is out there for you so that you can participate knowingly, right, as Sean was saying, because you are needed, right? We can only do this with your help. So making sure that you understand, but then also with regard to participation, understanding what you're enrolling in, but then also understanding, you know, what the outcomes will be. So.
Hi, Noah Friedman. I'm not directly affiliated with any organizations. I'm the brother of someone who has passed from a rare disease and a personal friend of Kyle. Kyle, you're a great inspiration, so are you, Sean, and you're an even better person and friend. I actually have 2 questions. The first is for you guys, what was the most difficult part of the ride? And the second is, do you have an agreement with the distributors, iTunes, Google, and Amazon for a portion of the proceeds from the movie going back to FA research?
Most difficult part of the ride, what do you think?
Everything after Oceanside.
Yeah.
No, I think this and Oceanside is where we started, just for the record. You know, this is a good time to talk about my most embarrassing scene, where I get a little upset because they pushed me 13 miles, which to most of us probably doesn't seem like that much. But, you know, every shot you're looking at, you're talking about at most 2 hours of sleep. You know, we took 4-hour shifts, but once you get off the bike, it take an hour to eat and wind down and then fall asleep, and then gotta get back up and get ready for your next shift. So now I forget the question.
The most difficult part.
Oh, the most difficult, all of it. In that particular scene, you know, besides being 3 a.m. and freezing cold and wet, that's when we just, or at least I, lost a little focus of why I was doing it. And seeing that scene isn't, you know, I laugh at it now, but it's also a little bit embarrassing because in that moment, I wasn't thinking about Dylan and Sienna, the young family you met. And realizing what they're going through, 3 a.m. in the pouring rain, that's nothing. So I think there were moments like that where physically it was challenging and food was difficult and nothing was good. But it was only 8 days, so we got over it, all right?
Yeah. I appreciate your honesty.
So there was the second part of that question, which was the proceeds from the movie that are collected by iTunes and elsewhere. Do they actually go back to research?
Well, one way or another, they do. I mean, no one will ever make money from this movie. I mean, that's not what it's for, right? I mean, it's put on iTunes for distribution purposes, and any money that you pay is basically going to them. I can assure you that none of it's going into the pockets of anybody involved in the movie.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for your attention and staying here as late as you have. Also, another round of applause for the Ataxian crew in the audience as well. Thank you very much, and have a very good evening. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Find us online at twodisableddudes.com. And please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts.
We'd like to hear from you. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Special thanks to our audio producer, Jake Tompkins, who also composed the music.
Until next time, keep living with urgency.